Good morning. I am calling to order the Board of Directors meetings for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments for Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Mr. Executive Director, we need to establish a quorum and then we'll do introductions.
Yes, Madam Chair, we need 7 for a quorum. I easily count 7 in the room, and I think we've got a couple online as well, but would suggest we go around and do self-introductions.
Okay, alrighty. We'll start with Mayor Graham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm John Graham, Mayor Manitou Springs.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Roland Gardine, Mayor Pro Tem of Callahan.
And I'm Todd Dixon, Mayor of Green Mountain Falls.
Space Base Delta 1 and Colonel David Hansen.
Shane Ferguson, Region 2 Transportation Director, CDOT.
I guess you.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric Stone, Teller County Commissioner and Treasurer of PPACG Board.
And good morning, Dave Donaldson, Colorado Springs City Council and Secretary PPACG Board.
And good morning, Stan Vanderwerf, El Paso County Commissioner.
All right, online, it looks like we have 4 elected officials. If you could just unmute and identify yourself, please.
Holly Williams.
Lynette Crow Iverson, City Council Pro Tem.
Holly Williams, El Paso County Commissioner, Second Vice Chair.
Dick Elsner, Park County Commissioner, First Vice Chair.
And we also have Trustee Shannon Walker from RAMA. I know there have been audio problems in the past, but they are on and able to vote via.
Okay, great. Thank you. And you'll let us know if anybody else hops on. Okay. And I am Sharon Thompson, the Mayor of the City of Fountain and Chair for PPACG. And thank you everybody for being here today. Anyone else online that we need to introduce? Any military partners?
Not that I recognize.
Okay. All right. That takes us to item 2, the agenda approval. What would the board like to do with the agenda for today?
Mayor Dixon, I'll move approval.
Second, Eric Stone, Teller County.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation on the agenda? Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion carries. That takes us on to item 3, public comments and presentations. Item A, we have an employee recognition.
Thank you. Barb Watson, our HR manager, is going to introduce our new HR specialist or generalist. I'm sorry. And yeah, come on up.
This is Sherry Hoffman. She is our new HR generalist for PPACG. That's it. Nice to meet you guys.
Very short.
Welcome,
So
Sherry.
it's shorter than I expected. So the reason we hired a new HR generalist is Barb Watson's retiring after 23 years with PPACG. And this is her last board meeting with the board. Last day is Friday, September 1st, and we're really all deeply sad and super happy to have Sherry on board. She brings a wealth of experience, but Barb has brought so much to the organization and has helped the board a whole lot when we had to go through some transitional things a couple of years ago, and has really left us in a really outstanding position. One of the strengths that Barb brings to the position is that she does such a great, diligent job with recruiting and trying to get people to apply to open positions we have here, and has really left us in just an amazing position. When other organizations have had difficult hiring the past couple of years through the pandemic and afterwards, hasn't been a problem here. We've hired just really an amazing staff, and you've left us in a really just a superior position. So I really appreciate everything you've done, and we're going to miss you greatly, but we wish you the best in retirement. Do we have a small token of appreciation? On behalf of the board, just wanted to leave this with Barb. And we're going to also have a retirement party for her in a couple of weeks, and I'll send out some details on that as well. But thank you so much, Barb. We really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to board comments if anybody would like to say anything. Yolanda?
I would. So Barb, since the beginning, has helped me with doing Andy's evaluations. And she'd come over, set time aside, and really explain everything and help me out. And so through this, I don't know, through the 6 years, right? So thank you so much for that, Barb. I'm really going to miss you, but I hope you have
Thank
a
you.
great time in the next chapter of your life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for your public service. It's really a calling. And did I hear 23 years? That's awesome. So congratulations. I hope you're going to do something really cool in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She
All
wants
right.
to come back and be a board member, a committee member now.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll consider.
There you go. Okay, then y'all heard it. Councilmember Donaldson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Andy, after hearing that Barb was helping Yolanda with ratings, that's probably explains those zeros on your ratings there. Oh, little joke. No, but Barb, 23 years is a long time. Is there one memory in there that stands out for you in that 23-year period? Or is there an event that happened here or something like that that you?
I got
Yeah,
to
there you
meet
go.
the governor. It was Governor Romer.
Uh-huh.
And at the time I was board secretary and I was over there
Uh-huh.
and just standing there and he comes up to me and shakes my hand and says, "Hi, I'm Governor Romer." So that was a big event. So that's
All right, cool. Well, thank you. And thank you very much. 23 years. It's a lot of times it is people who've been there a while and they have that knowledge just from staying, institutional knowledge. So thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
I see Commissioner Williams' hand online.
Yes, Barb, I truly wanted to thank you. I know that in all of these years you've been here, I know that you have seen some ups and downs and some real struggles. And at the end of the day, you stuck it through. And we have such a wonderful area council of governments because of your efforts to recruit good employees and to work hard. So thank you so much for the 20 years of making this organization better for future employees and future board members. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much.
Roland?
I think we should put it to a vote if we should let her go or not.
Oh. Well, my husband would have to weigh in on that.
He gets 10 votes.
Commissioner Vanderwerf, did you have something else to say? Because your mic is still.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said he gets 10 votes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Barb, I'd like to really, really thank you. When we had the transition between the former executive director and Andy, Barb and I spent a lot of time together. We not rewrote, but really made massive updates to the employee handbook that had not been overhauled for many, many years. And then we worked on the bylaws with assistance from other board members. But that was a really heavy lift, but you made the commitment to help us get that done before the new executive director came on so that they didn't have as big of a thing right out front on their plate. And I'd like to thank you for that because that took a lot of hours of your time and stuff aside from your regular job. And I think made us stronger as a board as a whole. And I mean, hopefully made it a little bit easier for the new executive director coming on. And so they can just do minor updates. But that really wasn't a task that necessarily fell under you, but you made sure it got done. And you've kept us out of a lot of trouble over the years with your gentle guidance. And thank you very, very much for that.
thank you. Stay tuned. Sherry is going to be working on that again. So
I'm sure there's another board member that would love to step up and work on the HR manual and the bylaws. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. And are we going to do a group photo? Would you like a group photo? Okay. All right. Whoever'd like to be in the photo, come on down. All right, congratulations again, Barb. Lot of years, lot of history. All right. Okay, that takes us to item 3B, public comments. Public comments can be made before or during the meeting. Public comments made during the meeting are limited to 3 minutes and can be done at the meeting location or remotely by using the Microsoft Link Teams. Individuals are encouraged to notify the meeting organizer before the start of the meeting with the agenda. If they would like to comment, public comments can be submitted before the meeting. Now, public comment, I just had Mr. Stone would like to clarify a point of that. Public comments are for items not on the agenda. Mr. Gunning, is that correct? Public comments are for items not on the agenda.
That's correct. We'll have opportunities later with items on the agenda for the public to comment at that point, but this is just for other items not shown on the agenda.
Okay, all right. So if there's anybody in the audience that has a public comment for anything not on the agenda, would you please step up to the microphone?
And Madam Chair, while we wait for that, I will also ask anyone who's online to use the raise hand function at this time, again, for any items not on the agenda. And I don't see any hands raised online, and I don't see anyone at the podium.
I don't see anybody running down front. Okay. All right, takes us on to item C, military installation reports. We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Bond in the room, and then we'll see if we have anybody online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for Peterson, Schriever, and Cheyenne Mountain, few items to brief. The East Gate closure continues. We're working through the weather delays, anticipating a September completion date. Mark your calendars for September 23rd for the Retiree Affairs Day that will be hosted at Peterson Space Force Base. This annual event is representative of the Air Force Installation Retiree Affairs offices, and it's open to any DoD retirees. So it's a good information fair for them to be able to update their knowledge base on what benefits are available for them. As many heard, the U.S. Space Com is planning to stay here in Colorado Springs. We look forward to continuing to provide installation support to all of our mission partners, including U.S. Space Com, and we'll work with the Department of the Air Force as they coordinate support requirements associated with a permanent U.S. Space Com headquarters. And Space Base Delta One is also going to be hosting Mayor Mobilati for an immersion brief on October 13th. Pending any questions, that's all I have to report.
Congratulations on that big win. That was exciting. And Colorado Springs put on a very nice reception for that the other day. Commissioner Vanderwood.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, I'd like to echo that as well, because the way this last round went, it was left to the Air Force Secretary to make the final decision. Would like to thank Secretary Kendall for making this decision. It was the right decision. So it'll save taxpayers $10 billion in the FIDIP, which is the 10-year defense plan. And had that not been reversed, we would have spent $10 billion to get no additional capability, a real waste of taxpayers' money. And then there was the mission degradation risk. So my personal thanks to the Air Force and Secretary Kendall for making the right decision. If you could pass that along, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Do we have any other military partners online?
I'll ask for anyone, based on names, I don't see anyone. If anyone is online representing a military installation, please use the raise hand function and we'll move you into a speaking role. But like I said, based on the names, I'm recognizing names from a lot of other places that are not military installations.
Okay, well, if they pop on later, we can always come back to
I'll
them.
let you know.
Okay, thank you. All right, that takes us on to item 4, consent agenda. We have items A, B, C, D, E, and F. These will be acted on as a whole unless they're called up for discussion by a board member or a citizen wishing to address the board. So what would the board like to do? I'm sorry, I'm going blank on your last name and I don't want to.
Case.
Thank you. I didn't want to call your first name. Councilmember Case. Okay, hang on just one second. Let us get there. You're looking at the attendance chart here at the bottom? Okay. Page 6, page 6. Okay, so you were here.
So Barb was
Yep,
not in
okay, all
attendance.
right.
Thank you.
So we'll make that correction. So when the motion would, correct motion, I believe, would be consent agenda, consent items and item A as amended.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair, to approve the minutes as presented with one change on attendees, item 10, to reflect that Mayor Labar was not in attendance.
Second, Mayor Dixon.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation on any of the consent items? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion carries for the consent items. That takes us on to action item 5. Item A, Broadmoor Lift Station Site Application. Ms. Werner.
Good morning, Ann Werner, Military and Environmental Planner here at PPACG. As you're aware, we're the Water Quality Planning Agency for the region. We're governed by a 208 plan that is managed by the State Department of Health and Environment. It was last updated in 2019 and approved by the board in 2020. Under those regulations, we review site applications, and those are primarily for wastewater improvements that come in to the region. And of course, our region is all 3 counties, Park, Teller, and El Paso. We review those for consistency with that 208 plan. Our process for these requests go through a site application review. We have 2 teams that do that. We have a more concentrated, smaller team called the Site Application Review Committee. That application is then, once recommended for approval, moves on to the Water Quality Management Committee. And once that's recommended for approval from them, then it moves on to the Citizens Advisory Committee. In this particular case, the Broadmoor plan was reviewed back in June by both SARC and WQMC, approved by both committees, but not approved by the CAC. In July, it was re-reviewed by the Water Quality Committee, approved again in July, and then also approved, I think it was a vote of 7-5 by the CAC to approve this for final signatures. At this point, I don't have anything further to state other than we'll let the engineer for the project, Joe Good from Intech, go ahead and come up and explain the project and how the concerns from the CAC were addressed.
Madam Chair, could I ask one question?
Yes.
It's an easy one. Ann, what was the vote on the Water Quality Commission?
Unanimous,
Okay.
both times, both in June
Both
and
times.
July.
And on the CAC, it went from 5-7 to 7-5. Is that right?
I think so. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Andy, could you kind of just brief us on what this process is in terms of why we're involved in this and what our role is today?
Sure. And Ann, don't wander away too far. I may need some help with this. So as Ann mentioned, we are the Water Quality Planning Agency for our 3-county region. Part of that requires us to adopt and maintain a water quality management plan and refer to it as the 208 plan. It's section 208 of the Federal Clean Water Act. So we call it the 208 Water Quality Plan. We prepared that in 2019. The board recommended approval of it. It had to go to the State Water Quality Control Commission for approval. They approved it mid-2020, I think it was. So that's basically our governing plan, and any wastewater improvements like lift stations or wastewater treatment plant expansions or changes have to go through our process that Ann explained with our Water Quality Management Committee, or our Site Application Review Committee, or the SARC, and then to the CAC, and then to the board for approval. And then those applications go into the state, I'm pretty sure, for final approval. And I think there might be a couple of steps perhaps before we handle it, and then after we recommend it, it then goes to the state for final action, I think, with the Water Quality Division in CDPHE, if that's correct.
Yeah, so when a project is going through the initial process with the state as part of this, our 208 plan review is only part of the overall process. So they start off with the state submitting an initial design for the project that the state looks at and gives their initial approval for it to proceed through this 208 process. Then it goes back to the state for final review and kind of project wrap up and signatures. So we're not at that point yet. We're still kind of, the applicant can explain the other signatures that they still need to obtain in addition to PPACGs and where they're at in that overall process with the state. And I believe, because I had some email correspondence with folks from the state, that there should be 2 or 3 reps from the Colorado Department of Health and Environment online to answer questions, should you have them, have any for them. So that may help.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, one more question if I could for Ann. Ann, do you know, is there an opportunity for citizen input beyond this?
That was a question I passed on to the state and asked for some clarification. And so I'm hoping that the folks that are online from the state can shed more light on that, because I don't have a definitive answer.
And Madam Chair, I have a similar question actually that I'd like to follow up from Councilman Donaldson is in reviewing some of the comments provided by the public in this particular case, Welling Clark's comments. He expressed in his letter his frustration over what he described was a lack of a public process at the state level for this review. So I'm interested in finding out, is there a public process at the state, or is that an administrative process that's just done internally? Because this is one of those situations where, we've got members of the public that want their input to be heard, and the state makes that, I think the state makes that final decision. And it might be important to ask that question. I want to make one last point as well. I believe this is a process within CDPHE, and I am the Congressional District 5 representative, a voting member of the CDPHE board. So, if we have a concern about this and feel like there's an issue about a sufficient public process or maybe no public process at all, I literally have a Board of Health meeting next week, Wednesday, and I will bring it up. So I'm interested in kind of getting a sense of, the board here, if we feel like there's a failure here or some kind of a challenge and lack of opportunity for the public to input to the state when they approve these things. This size of a sewer system becomes a state decision instead of a local. So I'd be interested in, input from this board, because I am happy to take it to the Board of Health and start asking questions up there. And I can do that Wednesday next week.
I have just a short response. I understand your concerns and respect what the public has brought forward. My understanding is the state has a posting process that is required by the applicant to post the property when the project is first started with that sort of initial design review with the state. That was accomplished and those requirements met by the engineer. Beyond what happens with more of a public notice process, kind of like what I think a lot of people look at that city planning does when they have the big green poster that goes out on a property. That's not a part of the process for our site application review through the 208 specific to PPACG's role. But the state does have a posting process. So Mr. Good can go ahead and explain more about that. And then hopefully what would happen beyond today's meeting and the discussion and points that the public will bring up. Hopefully someone from the state can weigh in a little bit more on what their public process really looks like for you. So hopefully you'll get a few more clarifications as we go through today's meeting.
Thank you. I am interested in hearing that from the state. So thanks.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay, we did have a hand online, but I noticed it's gone down.
And I'm sorry, and Madam Chair, we think there may have been somebody with the state with CDPAG. If we want to let them weigh in first to maybe talk about the state process, that would be helpful. Then we could hear from Joe, the engineer.
I think it was Dave. Can't see his last name.
So my name's David Kurz.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. So I'm with the Water Quality Control Division at the State Health Department. And just to clarify a few of those things, essentially anything greater than 2,000 gallons per day capacity is a domestic wastewater treatment works under the state's Water Quality Control Act that the legislature set. And that includes vaults. So that would not include, for example, a septic system at a individual home, but it does include larger facilities. And those do need to go under a state review process. And that's through regulations that are administered actually not by the Board of Health, but by the Water Quality Control Commission. It's a different governor appointed board. Excuse me. And typically the local process does take place before it gets submitted to the state. The Seven Falls project was submitted to the state and it hadn't yet not had the local review. So the current step that it's going through is that local review, which we said needed to be done. Typically vaults are something for like a short-term situation, and a longer-term solution probably should be determined. As far as the process and public comment, we do have a requirement that there be a posting for a period of time at a site before the a project is submitted, and that's to make people aware. But a lot of that public interaction is actually expected at the local level, both the county. In some counties, there is no 208 agency. So at the county level or at the 208 agency, so that there can be negotiations at that local level to revise a plan. And then any updates to that plan is shown in what would be included in submittals to the state. Because the state review is really focused on regulatory requirements towards water quality. Like, will this meet, let's say for a treatment plant, will it meet the water quality limits that a permit will have in order to protect the stream, for example? And so that's the focus. This is not a like what we think about with the big environmental impact statements and those kinds of things, or traffic and parking and other types that are planning and zoning type things. The state reviews pretty much got blinders on, and it's focused on the water quality. So hopefully that is a bit helpful.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Vanderwerf?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think we're in a kind of a process of discovery to make sure that we have an understanding. We know this kind of an event is a rare event, right? But so if I understand correctly, the Air Quality Control Commission, and to the gentleman's point, that is a separate board.
I believe he said water.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my apologies.
That's
Water
okay.
Quality Control Commission, that is a separate board, and I don't sit on that board, but nonetheless, we actually will have a combined meeting between the PPACG board and the Water Quality Control Board later this year. So I can actually still bring it up at that time. But it sounds like they are relying on the local public process for the public input. And that's new information for me. So that's interesting. So I appreciate the comments. So I look forward to hearing, other comments from citizens that likely will speak today, and we'll see where that takes us. Thanks.
Okay. And maybe this is really the first time we've had this issue come up with citizens really, really passionately involved with this. So maybe some internal review from us, Andy, on the process, and
Yes.
Because I think we're learning today too, they're leaning a little bit more heavily on us
Than we realized.
than we
Yeah,
realized in the
right.
process. So it's all a learning curve sometimes. So, okay, are we ready for the engineer?
Yes, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Good. I'm with Entech Engineering here on behalf of Broadmoor regarding the Seven Falls septic application. I'll go through kind of a brief presentation and then try to address the concerns that I'm aware of. Everybody here is probably familiar with Seven Falls, the gate here. And just a little bit of background before I get to this. Seven Falls has a restaurant at the end right before the falls, if you've been there recently. It used to be just more of a gift shop and a snack station. After Seven Falls purchased it, their desire was to convert it to a restaurant where they serve lunches and dinners. And so that's what prompted this application. And initially, we had a application and a septic system on site that was under 2,000 gallons a day. And it was approved and in place, and it was approved by El Paso County Department of Health. And that's what was in place there. There's the restaurant. The falls are behind it there. The original system was a typical leach field type system. The restaurant is at do I have a pointer here? I don't know if you can see with the pointer. Way up here at the end of the canyon, right before the falls. It had a advanced treatment system right there next to it that then discharged down, and it flows all the way down to the restroom, near the restrooms here, where you can see this area right here, where we had the typical type infiltrator leach field system. There's the system being installed. And this was all approved at the local level. This did not require state level because we were under 2,000 gallons a day.
Madam Chair, could I just ask, what year is that, sir?
This here was
Yeah.
back in, I think, 14 or 15.
2014?
I think
15?
that, yeah, 15 when that was.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have the exact date here in front of me. This is a picture of the infiltrators that were installed. We had a barrier that was placed in there because of the proximity to the creek to prevent flow laterally. It's a picture of this is a picture of the tank on site, but a pretty standard type septic 2-compartment tank being installed. And the restroom facility there was tied into it as well. Initially, later it was removed just because of flow levels. This is an overview, and you can see the Seven Falls restaurant and the where the field is, and also where our proposed vault system is. It's going to be right next to the field that was installed. Now, this is a very tight canyon. It's very limited space to put things, and that's what pushed us to the vault system. Over 2,000 gallons a day, we don't have enough separation from the creek. We don't want to contaminate the creek, and until such time that the Broadmoor can tie into a city system, the vault system is what was proposed, and it will require pumping. The positive side of this is there is zero discharge. There's no chance of this getting and contaminating the creek because there is no discharge. This is a map of the city Colorado Springs Utilities service area, and the Broadmoor, the Seven Falls is down here on the lower left-hand side, and we are outside of the boundaries of service. The connection points to tie in are about 1.4 and 1.7 miles away. And that's the reason the vault is being proposed at this point. The desire eventually is to tie into the city sewer. The issue is the funding of that project and making that happen. That's an aerial view of that. This is the restroom facility. The picnic tables to the left of it are where the old field was. The vault system will go kind of between those picnic tables and the restroom facility. It'll be totally buried underground. The tanks themselves, and I'll show you that in a minute, but they're proposing about 22,500 gallons of capacity, which allows us multiple days during normal operations, 2 days during peak operations, even when they're pumping. So we have the capacity. It's probably a bit overkill. This is just looking at the restroom facility. Right now, this restroom is not being used. They have a comfort station up near the restaurants, and that is the stuff that's being pumped today. And it's about 1 to 2 trucks a week right now with that comfort station. Just another picture of the site. There's the picnic tables. Again, under the picnic tables where the old field is, that actually it's old, but currently it is supplying the treatment for just the restaurant itself. No bathrooms are being used in the facility. These are just flow values, and the use up there is not over 2,000 gallons a day every day. It's during peak times. June, July, August, which is obviously their peak times. There are a lot of days when, if you actually look at the average, monthly average, that we're below 2,000 gallons a day on daily averages. On May, June, July, August, September, they are over, and then they drop back down to where, and these are flow values from the usage on site. That's in the report.
Madam Chair, could I just, I don't want to interrupt, but sometimes I know I won't recall this.
Okay.
But these flow values don't include a restaurant, correct? This is just the,
No, these do when it was
Okay.
operating.
they do.
And that's
when it
what
was.
pushed us, the state, that's what
Yeah.
pushed us to do this.
Okay,
They were when the restaurant was operating prior to being shut down during COVID.
okay, very good, thank you.
Is calculating volumes for the capacity of the tanks. And for a 48-hour retention, it was 25,000 gallons. This kind of shows in the red where the vaults are located. And there's 8 vaults. The restroom at that point, the lower restroom can then be tied into the vault system, which would allow them to remove the comfort station up at the restaurant, which requires, this will require pumping. They won't have to pump from the restaurant area up at the top. Again, there's zero discharge here. Everything flows into here and it is pumped out. The pumpers, there's some questions on pumpers. This is a visual of the pump tanks, basically the size of a trash truck is what they are. Their capacity is 4,000 gallons. Currently, it's like I said, with the comfort station and how they're operating now, it's 1 to 2 a week. They do come in on Cheyenne Road and then leave on Cheyenne Road, the Boulevard. Sorry. The sewage is taken to Colorado Springs Utilities, and that's where it's treated. And they have presently they are using reliable sanitation. There are several providers that are approved by Colorado Springs Utilities for hauling. And then during the operation of the vaults, during peak season or in peak times, we would anticipate, 1 truck a day. That's 4,000 gallons. During the real heavy seasons, it might be 2, depending. They do schedule them early in the morning, and they would be, again, following Cheyenne Boulevard in and Cheyenne Boulevard out. Just to give you an idea of a tank, the 2,500 gallon tank, they're about 16 feet long, 6 feet wide, 5 feet deep. They will be buried. You won't see them when you're in there. A picture of a tank that gets lifted and put in the ground. And again, they are sealed and there's zero discharge from them. See a couple other items that might have come up. The restaurant did open this year around May 15th. And then they are using the pumping from the system and they are having the lower restaurant flows go to the field that's there right now. That's my understanding. One other comment, and there's already been quite a bit of discussion about it, is the public notice. We did post. It was posted for the state. Ann and I talked, and at that time, it was determined that additional posting at this point wasn't required. In hindsight, I wish I would have, to just get everybody. When we did post before, I don't remember getting any comments back. Not that that matters, but it was posted with a sign on about 4x5 posting. It's in the copy of this is in our report where we posted it next to the site there. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any board members in the room have questions, and anybody online, please raise your hand if you have questions. Commissioner Stone.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The only time I'm looking at infrastructure projects like this, I always ask, what's the motivating factor for needing to do it? Number 2 is what's the ramifications of not doing anything? And then how does the solution that's being provided actually address both the latter and the former? So that's 3 questions in one.
Okay.
But so I guess, in essence, where are we today? What is the risk of doing nothing, and how does this address those specific risks?
If they do nothing, my understanding is they cannot operate the restaurant if nothing is done. They may be able to back it down flow-wise. I think they would have to keep the comfort station there Um, the, um, the, the reason we went this route is because of the cost for the tie-in at this point. That was a Broadmoor decision, not mine.
Sure.
Um, and also the time to get that done. That is the long-term plan, is to tie in. I don't know how far along, NTEC does not do sewer type designs. We deal with geotechnical, wastewater, septic type on-site treatment systems. So I'm not aware of where they're at in that study. But that's the plan long-term, is to be able to tie into the city utilities. And then, third part, or did I answer them all in that?
I think that pretty much answered them.
Okay.
Commissioner Vanderworth.
Yes, thank you. Not necessarily need to answer it right now, but I am interested in it. So kind of with the explanation from the state representative, they look to a completed process locally and then it goes up there, but they approved it in 2020. So
It wasn't fully approved.
okay,
It had been reviewed, and the approach and the type of system we were using was approved from a lower administrative level. This is an approach we can use here.
okay. And then the reason why we've got this 2-year gap is because of COVID.
Yes.
Is really what caused that.
Yes.
So what is the process remaining going forward? So what if there's an approval done here, does it go to the state to complete their review then? Is that what happens?
Yes, it will be. They've done, again, an initial preliminary review of it, and once we get the application completed, it will go back. It won't go back in terms of a new submittal. They have the submittal, but the form will go back and it will reopen their final review process.
Okay. And they don't have a public process there. I mean, I heard from the state engineer that they or the state representative that they rely on the public process locally. So it sounds like that's an administrative review up there,
I believe that's correct. I know they have numbers people can call to discuss, but I don't think it's a process like a meeting here that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from anybody in the room? And do we have any hands raised online?
Just, Madam Chair, just one more question, sir. I don't know if you can speak to this or not. What is the durability of these pumper trucks? What can they? I know concern is, hey, one of these could turn over or something in the canyon and then dump all this effluent into the creek or onto the road. Are you familiar with any experiences where, hey, they've been hit by a car, turned on the side? What is their survivability, if you want to use that term?
I'm not aware of any situations like that. The tanks are welded tanks with a fairly good seal on it. If it was going high speeds and it turned over, I think it would spill. The speeds we have here are relatively low in the canyon there. And I really can't see that happening. I mean, anything's possible, but I really can't see that happening. And I have not heard of anything like that happening.
Okay.
Madam Chair, after listening to you and the state and everybody else, aren't you also guys excluding Colorado Springs? What is you're going to be tying in a Colorado Springs facility? Okay, but what is their input on this? And communication to the public, to the Colorado Springs residents? Is that a different process?
Well, the site itself is in the county, and so it's not in the city. In terms of Colorado Springs Utilities, yes, we have reached out to them. They have already signed the application saying they approve what we're doing, and they have also said at the time of tying, they have the capacity to take the flow once it is tied in.
But so you're still talking like a 2-phase operation here then? This is going to be a 1 phase and then tie in going to be the 2nd phase.
Correct. Well, yes, the vaults, once the city's tied in, will no longer be needed. There will be no purpose for them. So at the time they tie into the city, it would be just like another utility customer that's paying a wastewater fee to have their flow go there.
but I still haven't heard any, response about doing the second phase, and how you actually address to the public that phase.
We don't have as far as I know, the exact timeline is not determined. Again, it's the rough estimates initially were 1.5 million to do it. And they'd have to get plans approved first, obviously, and then the funding for that. And I would like to think that it's going to be 2 to 5 years, but I'm not the one paying it and I'm not the one that has to get that approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Good, maybe this is a little bit outside your bailiwick, but kind of following on Raleigh's question here. Do you know what the elevation difference is between the site, essentially where this tank would be, or the restaurant, and the point where it would eventually tie in if they were to do a sewer?
I don't have the exact elevations there. There's a spot on Cheyenne Boulevard that I believe is lower. The one on Mesa, I believe, may require a lift station, but that hasn't been studied yet.
Okay, I just do you know what precautions would be made to handle pressure differences? I mean, it seems like you'd have wastewater coming down, coming downhill, and I could see where that could be a problem for the neighborhood down below.
Yeah, and that would be studied and have to be approved. City utilities would have to approve the plans for that. And depending on where a lift station is located, it may even come back through you guys in terms of a review process.
Yeah, okay. I can understand the concern of people in the neighborhood there, particularly, I mean, if a sewer pipe were put in there, they might have concerns about, backflow and that kind of thing. And living in Manitou Springs, I've seen a number of people having that problems, because we have, quite a bit of, elevation differences, and that's resulted in people having their basements filled with not very nice wastewater.
Yeah, and initially the line wouldn't have that possibility of basements because it wouldn't be tied to existing houses there. I would assume that at some point, people along whatever route is taken could tie in that are on septic now, but that I haven't looked into that. But as far as I can see the concern, if that was happening, that will be studied. But in terms of backflow into houses, it wouldn't be tied into any houses initially. That would come down the road.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. Correct me if I'm wrong. The tie-in to the Colorado Springs services is not really on the horizon at this point or planned. I read somewhere, does that require annexation first for them to, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that have to come first before that tie-in is considered, mainly that the applicant would desire that and that would be available to them. So I think that is something down the road quite a ways that would require a lot of planning and and I really don't at this point think that really is relevant to our decision today. The second point I'd like to share with you all is we had an accident in Woodland Park a few months ago where a tanker pulled into a parking lot that had an angle to it and to get a donut, and it fell over, and it had not the kind of diesel that we buy on the street, but it was headed to the mine, and the kind of fuel that they use up there, which is more raw and not as processed as what we buy for our vehicles. And it went down into Fountain Creek. Interestingly enough, the crews reacted quick enough to stop it before it ever left Woodland Park down behind Safeway. And that is still waiting for cleanup at this point. But there are plans and folks that are prepared to respond to those kinds of accidents to minimize the effects of those kinds of accidents. Accidents do happen. We don't live in a guaranteed perfect world, but I do know that there are people that have great plans in place that react and minimize that damage. So I just wanted to share that experience with you all. It's a different product, but it's still a spill of something that doesn't belong there. So I think that there are ways to mitigate that, and we can't plan out every accident that might happen. So I just wanted to share those two things. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vanderwerth.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So having been to a lot of big events, one very recently was the Oshkosh Air Show that I went to just a couple of weeks ago. where 600,000 people went to basically a farmer's field and an airport, and they needed the sewage treatment capacity there, which was an absolutely enormous number of those porta potties, and then a need to pump out of the porta potties every single day. So they had these pumper trucks driving through this area. The reason why I bring it up is this is a well understood process about how these trucks can deliver this, and they've got to have a lot of requirements to comply with in order to make sure that public health is appropriate. The one thing that I think is kind of interesting is kind of the unique nature of this road. It's narrow, it's curvy, and I know these trucks are pretty mobile. I was pretty amazed at what I saw at the Oshkosh Air Show, where this thing was driving across raw farmers' fields and doing this kind of stuff. But what about this road? What kind of issues do we have with the road getting trucks in and out? Is it a no-brainer, or are there some challenges there?
Well, there's challenges. And the reason they use Cheyenne Boulevard is because Mesa is too narrow. So that their drivers are directed to come in on Cheyenne, and then up even the road inside of Seven Falls is narrow and windy. They have been providing the service now. They started it actually before COVID, but then when it shut down, but they are providing the service. Yeah, anytime you have roads like this, it's no different, in my opinion, than the trash trucks that have to come up in there. That they need to navigate it carefully, and because of the winding nature of it, it reduces their speeds, which I think reduces the potential for accidents on there.
And they have a good turnaround point?
Yes, they do. Actually, right at the point of, let me get to the aerial here. Right there. This is where the vaults are located, right in here. And they have this route. You can see the roundabout right there where they can turn around on it. Is where they would turn around. Because this is the point where the pumping out of the tanks would be just to the left side of the building that you see there. In front of that vehicle is where the tank will be located. They'll be there pumping it out, and then they can turn around on that roundabout there.
And then with regard to the actual process of the truck, I just don't know much about it. I don't want to get into extreme detail on this, but I'm sure there's got to be some pretty extensive approval process for these trucks in order to do this. And there's a bunch, I presume there's a bunch of safety features on those trucks to prevent accidental spillage and all this stuff. So can you give us a few sentences on that kind of thing?
I don't know all the details of it as well. However, I do know that before they are allowed to haul to Colorado Springs Utilities, each company has to be approved and go through a approval process. And those are the only companies that are allowed to discharge pump waste to the Colorado Springs Utilities. And Reliable Sanitation is one of those. There are several other options. If for some reason something happens with Reliable, City of Colorado Springs Utilities, I believe there's like 8 or 9 or 10 companies that are approved, but they have to be approved by Colorado Springs Utilities before they're allowed to pump.
I'm sure that's a pretty extensive process to get on.
I would imagine it is, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Stone?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And not a specific question, but just kind of a observation from our experience in Teller County. A couple things. We're in the process of trying to expand our wastewater treatment plant, and just through the speed of bureaucracy and trying to accomplish something like that, the speed of bureaucracy is moving much slower than the speed of the marketplace. And one of the things that we're considering and is being presented to us is the idea of that in advance of expansion, which is going to take years, is to install holding tanks and transfer that effluent actually to our partners in Woodland Park, so that they can process it there, that for anything that's over and above what our current plant can't handle. It's an option, and it's presented as an option because and actually somebody had in their letter as a stopgap, and it's not really a stopgap. It's an interim in between certain things. If the pathway that you're on is that those flows are going to increase, and if as Ben mentioned, that it may be in the future that it ties in, but if it doesn't tie in the future, then at least you have a sanitary and safe way to hold the raw sewage until it can be transported. Second comment is just, in Teller County, 80% of our homes are either on some form of septic or there's tanks. And if you go up into Woodland Park, probably any given day, you'll see probably multiple sewage trucks going through town. It's probably in Green Mountain Falls and other places as well, where people have to have their tanks pumped out, either due to lack of maintenance, to where, that things begin to build up and they need to get them pumped. But in general, I mean, this is not a new process. This type of transporting of raw sewage to places that can, properly process the sewage has been going on for decades. It's, generally considered to be very reliable, very safe. And actually, these trucks are really not much different in size and their structural integrity as are the pure water trucks that deliver water to all these places also, which is the other type of truck you'll see in our area a lot, because they tap into city resources in order to fill fresh water trucks, because there are some places in Teller County where you can't have a well, where you have such a low flow well, you need to install a cistern, and then they deliver water into those. I understand the concerns of the folks in the neighborhood in this area, about the truck traffic, is that it's pretty common in a rural area, which when you're outside the city limits, as this site is, it's very common that you're going to have either a water truck coming in or a septic truck coming out at varying times to do that. And the process of doing so is pretty reliable. So those are my observations.
And I'd like to add that, he mentioned that the percentage in Woodland Park that's on the septic. El Paso County is, I believe, the largest county, or has the largest number of on-site wastewater for houses in the state. And these companies are around not just for this type of process, but the majority of their service is pumping tanks. An individual on-site wastewater tank on a house should be pumped about every 3 to 4 years to properly maintain it. And these trucks are all over the county and driving and providing that service.
Councilmember Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you. And sir, the trucks that are currently going to Seven Falls would be the same kind of truck that would go there, same size that would go there if this is approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, the photo that I had is
Yep.
that's the truck they're using today.
Even though their capacity increases multiple times, it's still the same size vehicle that comes there.
Yeah, that truck is 4,000 gallons, and for the most part, the flows are not more than 4,000. A few days it will be. So if they're pumping once a day during peak, it should keep up with it.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
just,
that's okay.
I went on the El Paso County Public Health website, because you talked about El Paso being the largest. For those that don't know, there's 30,000 septic systems in El Paso County.
Yes.
30,000. It is a huge number.
And
It is.
probably growing as we grow.
And growing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions comments from anybody around the table? And I'm still not seeing any hands online. Are you, Jared? Okay. Andy, any last words you want to say before we open it up for public comment?
No, I was just going to suggest maybe start with public comments in the room and then move to online. But yeah, I think you're at that point. Sure.
Okay, we'll start with public comments in the room. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. You cannot combine your minutes with someone else's. Each individual person will get 3 minutes, where will be a timer on the speaker's screen on the speaker's dais, and Commissioner Stone has agreed to give everybody a 30-second warning so that to be wrapping it up. And so if you could just please come down and state your name for the record, and as one person speaking, if we could get the next person to kind of stand up behind, not behind them, but near them, so we can kind of keep this moving along.
And Madam Chair, if I can just add another layer of logistics for those online, if you would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand function. We'll do those in the room, and then we'll have the queue ready to go for those online.
And will the people online be able to see the 3-minute button?
Yes, they will.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, first person, come on down.
And I should mention as well, I didn't mention earlier, as the first speaker is getting ready, we have a handful of written comments that we submitted, sent out to the board late yesterday and again this morning with another comment that came in overnight. So everything that's been submitted, the board has all of those written comments.
And the written comments will become part of the minutes.
That's correct. And we'll submit those to the state as well as we transmit the application.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Puma. Appreciate being here. My name is Jim Bensberg, and I here on behalf of Cheyenne Canyon Conservationists, a group that I founded in 2009. joined here with several of our members. And I'm also here on my own behalf because I'm in the epicenter of activity in Cheyenne Canyon. I have Cheyenne Creek running through my backyard, and I have Cheyenne Boulevard and all of the Seven Falls buses and shuttle trucks, and now perhaps septic trucks passing by my house. I included in my presentation, I hope you all received it, a 2-page letter from 1965 addressed to the neighbors from the Myron Stratton home, who I believe, if you've read this short letter, exemplifies what should be done by a good corporate citizen when they are going to impact or potentially impact a neighborhood. This has not been done in this case. There's been no public outreach, no public process. And to date, I've yet to see anybody but the engineer that's been hired by the applicant, the Broadmoor, to appear at any of these meetings to answer any of the questions that you have posed. There are really only 2 ways to access Seven Falls, and just because it's behind the arches and in the county doesn't mean that the trucks and buses that continually run throughout the year, but especially in the summer months, won't impact the neighbors. It's I find it interesting that the engineer that presented earlier said that the Mesa Avenue is too narrow for these septic trucks. The Ramblin' Express buses, motor coaches, are far larger than these septic trucks, and they routinely run a loop route. And this is what we're suggesting, that this approval, if it is to go forward, be conditioned on the idea that all neighborhoods are treated equally. We who live on Cheyenne Boulevard and Cheyenne Road are far less well perfumed than the folks who live above us in 80906. And we take note on a daily basis. The route does not add any significant time for the sewage trucks, and I believe that it's wholly appropriate to call into question the idea that Cheyenne Boulevard should bear the full brunt of these and other vehicles that Seven Falls
30
routinely
seconds.
trucks. As the flows were presented earlier, I believe once these vaults will be in place, you'll see the flows increase greatly, and therefore the number of trucks required. So trying to keep within the time here, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have for me as a lifelong resident of this area.
Thank you very much. I'll let the clock run down. You have 4 more seconds. 2. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bimsberg?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just interested in just a quick clarification. So they've got the two roads, excuse me, Cheyenne Boulevard, and the other one was Mesa.
Yes.
Okay, and you're proposing that they split the ingress and egress between the 2 roads, or are you talking about some kind of loop, or what?
That is the current situation as we've observed it from the Broadmoor. The Ramblin' Express buses and their shuttle buses use Cheyenne Boulevard to access South Cheyenne Canyon, which is separate from North Cheyenne Canyon. And this is where the entrance to Seven Falls is located. But on exit, these buses are required by the Broadmoor to leave Mesa Avenue and go up Penrose and then drop down into the Broadmoor area and use Cresta to return to their home base at Norris Penrose Stadium. And so this is where those buses are staged. It's quite an operation if you haven't witnessed it personally, but the idea that this can't be done because the septic trucks are so large that they can't fit on Mesa is absolutely without merit. It's already been shown. The Ramblin' Express buses are triple the size of the septic truck, and they seem to navigate Mesa Avenue on exit from the Seven Falls area quite easily.
Okay, thank you. I imagine that the applicant being represented by the engineer, they'll have an opportunity for rebuttal, and maybe we can ask the engineer at that time to respond to
I was
that.
assuming we'd just do that at the end of public comment.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Thank
And then maybe just if you could look this up really quick, the different roads up there, I'm not quite sure with the roads, I know that Seven Falls is in the county, but I'm not sure who's review the roads.
In the city of
under-
Colorado
and I-
Springs.
Okay, but then that might be a separate conversation that y'all need to have about that, addressing that issue, because that it really isn't what we're here for today, but. thank you for
Understood,
bringing-
and I have engaged our District 3 representative, Michelle Talarico, but as yet, we've been unsuccessful in scheduling any kind of a substantive meeting to address this and long-term issues. As someone said earlier, this is phase one of a two-phase project.
Okay,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
yes.
And Mr. Bensberg, is your recommendation is to do this out of fairness? Is that essentially it?
That's
Is so that
correct.
the traffic isn't always simply on one road?
What's good for the goose is good
Yeah.
for the gander, and if they can run their buses through the Broadmoor and down Lake Avenue, we believe they should do that on the exit with these septic trucks.
Okay, thank you.
That seems like a fair compromise to us. Any other questions? Yes.
Madam Chair. Yeah, Mr. Bensberg, I was wondering if you could just briefly give us an idea of what you think a reasonable public input process or public engagement process would be that would be satisfactory to the neighborhood.
I believe that as the city of Colorado Springs has done in discussing improvements to our roadways and other issues in Cheyenne Canyon, they would convene a meeting with a moderator at the Cheyenne Junior High School or the Cheyenne High School, and people would be noticed with a postcard, which is typical in these cases, certainly not unreasonable within a certain radius of the impacted area. And this is what I would envision as a reasonable and good neighbor public process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember.
Yeah. I would just comment that I think the reason that hasn't happened through the city is none of this is being permitted through the city. It's not being approved through planning, anything like that. It's really gone through the Water Quality Commission, which is overseen by PPACG, and then the state, and the property is out in the county. So that's why the city hasn't had a role in this to this point. It was, we've talked about this. It was the Broadmoor's opportunity and decision not to do that. So, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? If not, we'll go on to the next speaker. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to make public comment? Please come down to the microphone and state your name for the record.
My name is Karen Raymond, and I've lived in Cheyenne Canyon on Cheyenne Boulevard.
Karen, can we get you
for
to pull them?
41 years.
There you go.
For 41 years. Usually my voice is really bad and loud. And anyway, what Jim neglected through no fault of his own is to remind you, we would like to tell you that because we complained so much when the Broadmoor Seven Falls decided to run the shuttles, ingress and egress, in front of our houses all along the boulevard. They were forced to send some of them back down to Norris Penrose by way of the Broadmoor instead of using our street. My trash man, Brent, who I'm friends with over 10 or 15 years now, they couldn't deliver trash when the Broadmoor decided to run the shuttles and their transit through our neighborhood. My mailman, who I was friends with for 25 years, he couldn't deliver the mail because they couldn't get across the street. People couldn't walk out their driveways. We couldn't get, so what we've learned is the Broadmoor does whatever they want in our area. And we're left to deal with what has happened. We had meetings, they were forced to use their own street to go back to Norris Penrose. And we would like them to have to, like everybody else does, use their own infrastructure for their money making. And we don't mind that they make money off of the Seven Falls, but They extended the hours this year and extended the days open. And so this is why you have problems like this. It's through their fault, no fault of ours, but we bear the brunt of the traffic and now the sewage down our street back and forth. So that's really our problem, you know. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have, I didn't get, Karen, I missed your last name.
Pardon?
I missed your last name.
Raymond.
Raymond. Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any question for Ms. Raymond? Okay, are there any other speakers in the room? All right, please come down to the microphone and state your name for the record.
My name is Jan Fritchley, and I live in 1405 Cheyenne Boulevard. And I've lived there all my life, almost 70 years. And I'm a nurse, been a nurse for many, many, many years. What concerns me is we have a lot of wildlife on Cheyenne Boulevard. People drive like fools. If one of these trucks is barreling down the boulevard, yeah, it's 30 miles an hour, a deer and a fawn run in front of them, they slam on their brake on one of the corners and toss it over. My big concern is, what do they have if we have a spill? What plan do they have? I think it's a public health hazard. That's all I have to add as a nurse.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to make an assumption here. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I like it was stated by Councilmember Case. I believe they're required to have plans in place and response teams and various things if something were to happen. So and I'm sure if they were approved by Colorado Springs Utilities to be a waste hauler, they would make sure that all those things are in place.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think that would be great again for the rebuttal. Maybe the state representative may have some input to that, and then also maybe the engineer, but I'd like to hear what they have to say about it.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
like
you.
to hear it too. But yeah, and because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes on this permitting stuff that we're not all necessarily aware of until we ask, right? So is there anybody else in the audience that would like to make any comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have any hands raised online?
Madam Chair, we do not. I'll make another call for any of those online to please use the raise hand function and let us know you'd like to make a public comment. But as I stall for time a little bit more, and after now a second call, I don't see any hands going up right now. But if some do come up in the next few minutes or moments, I will let you know.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and close public comment on this and give the engineer a chance to come back up and answer any questions or concerns that were raised during public comment period.
Madam Chair, while he's coming up to the microphone, I just want to clarify, I don't know what their plans are, but I've seen their response in action.
Right.
And it was so handled so well that I just assume that there's something in place. I know we have emergency management procedures that our emergency management office prepares that is done collaboratively throughout our county. So I have not seen them myself, but I have seen it in action and it's impressive. So thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Case said in the hazardous waste spill that happened right in the middle of the city of Woodland Park. And unfortunately, not only right in the middle of the city of Woodland Park, it literally was a couple hundred yards on top of the headwaters, which actually are underground right there for Fountain Creek, and then get above ground about 500 yards later. I know that Mayor Graham was sitting down the hill and Mayor Dixon were sitting down the hill going, what's coming our way? But generally, hazardous waste spills, I assume it's similar in El Paso counties. It triggers a multi-agency response. Is you're going to have fire departments, you're going to have the Office of Emergency Management, also the companies that are responsible ultimately have fiscal responsibility for cleanup, and that usually is a little bit ongoing, but the ability that they have within those areas to quickly contain, that actually is why we have offices of emergency management, and actually the robust nature I know of. I think it's a joint office of emergency management here in the El Paso, Colorado Springs area and Fountain, and you guys probably have this joint effort that goes on, and while I certainly recognize, and I want to thank, by the way, Ms. Fritchley, Ms. Raymond, Mr. Bensberg, for coming and talking about your concerns. I think some of those concerns about the way traffic is routed in those mean, I would hope, and of course I'm in Teller County, but, I would hope that, traffic routing and those types of issues, would be able to be addressed somewhat on a neighborly issue, standpoint of being good neighbors. And now that being said, I know there's some talk about whether or not, the Broadmoor in this particular, area of some of their, I guess, ancillary business operations of what the level of their neighborhoodliness is. But, but as their neighbors, I mean, that would be probably when you're talking about, the routes that people take, and that is, through this process, is to be able to work with them. And it may also just simply be chatting with the companies they're contracted with to actually move it, because it may be that once the Broadmoor says, hey, come pick this up, is that the company that's moving in is actually the company that determines what their route is. And there may be certain rules around what routes they take. There may be rules in the city of Colorado Springs of what a shuttle bus can take versus what a heavier vehicle carrying fluids, the 4,000 gallons of fluid can take. I don't know. It depends on the load rating of the streets and what's been designated by cities as proper routes. But, I would probably suggest you continue those conversations about that. And I say that from a citizen who lived in an area of Teller County where there was significant traffic that was operating in an area with a road that was not approved for that level of traffic. We were getting 1,000 cars a day of traffic, people coming to Colorado Springs to work through a residential neighborhood. And ultimately, through those neighbors working together, they were able to work out a rerouting of traffic locally. And actually, I was chatting with Mayor Pro Tem Kays as we were driving down this morning. She said, why is this detour sign up here? And I said, well, funny you ask, but it has to do with helping to reroute traffic and do it so it's more equitable and safer. So that would be certainly my recommendation should this be approved.
Councilman,
Yes.
I keep calling you Councilmember. I keep demoting you. I'm so sorry, Commissioner Vanderweer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We all have questions about that, don't we? Which way does that go? But anyway, to the question, for those that are in Teller County, yeah, there is an extensive hazmat capability in El Paso County. It is owned and operated by the Pikes Peak office or Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management, which a couple, 3 years ago, the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso County combined their operations into this regional office. They have trucks, they have employees dedicated to this, they have certifications, and they have all of that stuff. Now, having said all that, I think it's still a reasonable question to talk about Mesa Avenue, and I think you'll have an opportunity to maybe rebut that or talk about that. And then from your point of view as the engineer on the project, I am interested in, what you have as an understanding about what the vendor does or could do or has as a capacity to deal with potential spills. In other words, what's out there for this operation to protect the community, to protect the environment should something go wrong?
Well, if something goes wrong, it is the Pikes, the emergency response teams that would be notified immediately. The route that they chose was really reliable, chose that on their own because of, and in our conversations with them, they felt it was the safest route in and out. If there was a spill, again, it would be through basically a 911 call and go with the emergency response teams. I have not spoke to Reliable specifically about if they have someone that would go out immediately. I don't know how they would handle that part, but it would be the emergency response team that is very good in El Paso County.
So the vendor has a response team as well? Or are you talking
No,
about the
I
El
don't
Paso
know if
County?
they do.
Oh, okay.
I believe it would just be a 911 call to get the emergencies out there.
Okay.
Response teams out there. They may, I'm not aware of one. I haven't had that conversation with them. I have talked to them about the size of the trucks, the routes they're taking, their capacity to handle it. I have not talked to them about an emergency response.
Yeah, and I've been through this process before with the Forest Service regarding Lloyd Creek Road over on the west side of El Paso County, where there's been some challenges about residents and big gigantic logging trucks and things like that. And when I was discussing that with the Forest Service, they told me that they do not place in their contracts any driving requirements. If it's a road, it's a road, it's a road. that was the way they worded it. But I just wonder if there's, some kind of an opportunity to maybe discuss with the vendor, just recognizing maybe some form of an accommodation for the community and maybe asking them to consider using both roads and kind of splitting it up a little bit. It's not necessarily about a safety issue. I think it's more about, traffic and congestion issue because there are a ton of vehicles going through that area during tourist season, and it's a pretty congested area. And it's on narrow roads and these kinds of things. So I don't know if that's something that can be asked of the vendor, and maybe, they can just refuse it and then it is what it is because there's nothing in the contract that says you must drive half the time on this road and half the time on that road. But maybe in just the interest of just being good neighbors, maybe that could be asked of them.
And I think it can be, and I think we can definitely address that. I would set up a meeting with the Broadmoor, the Reliable, and kind of bring that up. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't consider it. It again, keep in mind, we're talking for the most part, 1 truck a day. There is a lot of traffic on that. I understand that. Most of that is the shuttle buses and the other stuff. This is typically 1 truck a day, maybe 2 during the busy times. But I have no issue with approaching that and approaching Reliable and the Broadmoor and setting up a meeting where we can discuss that for that reason you're talking about.
So we really have 2 issues that we're kind of on the table here. It seems like we have the the holding tanks that we need to take care of today. And then the concern of the equitableness of the traffic that's going in and out of the area. We can't do anything about the traffic, but I'm just wondering if, I'm glad you've reached out to your council member on that side of town. I hope you get that meeting sooner rather than later. See if there's maybe some type of traffic study or count or something that can be done so we can see which one's being done a little unfairly. It doesn't seem to me that these trucks are the majority of the traffic that they're really concerned about. And I know they're concerned about the spills, but I mean the amount of traffic. But I get the fact it's frustrating to have that all on your lane all the time and not someone else's. So it seems to me like there's really 2 different conversations. Does everybody kind of feel that way, or am I missing the mark on this?
Well, one's relevant to
One's relevant to what we
Relevant to
need
the
to
issue
do. Yeah,
regardless, but
right. The other one's a bigger issue, but I'm really glad they're bringing it up.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm from the real mountains, not like you flatlanders down here. Okay. Okay, the Peak Highway up there between Netherland and Estes Park, and also down to Lyons and that kind of stuff. But the truck for the wildlife that was brought up, they actually put out little siren things on the trucks that actually made the animals identify that. So that actually cut down a whole bunch of animals being killed or run over or any kind of accidents. So that's a suggestion for you flatlanders.
Now we got name calling going on, huh? All right. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, I have a concern about the neighborhood, the neighbors. We received several articulate letters from residents, and I think that what Mr. Binsberg had suggested, just a public meeting with residents in the neighborhood to let them express their concerns would be a good idea. I would be hesitant to pass this the way it is without giving the residents an opportunity to respond. I know in my jurisdiction, I think it's probably true in most, if not all of our jurisdictions, when we have a special use permit that comes through our planning department or a zoning change, something like that, we require that mailed notices be sent to neighbors within a certain geographic area, that it be posted, and that people be aware of this and they have an opportunity to come to a public meeting and discuss this. I think that's just fundamental. In this case, I kind of see this as a situation of the neighborhood and the airport. It's one thing if you move into a neighborhood where there is an existing airport. It's another thing if you move in and later on the airport comes and moves in next to you. And I kind of see that as this sort of situation. You're seeing an expansion, not only of traffic, but of environmental concerns. And while I think the engineering solution, from my layman's perspective, looks like it's pretty sound and there's a limitation as to what the options are, I do think it would be very valid to have a public meeting and give the neighborhood an opportunity to speak to this, to speak not only to the engineering situations, but to things like traffic and in future use. You're talking about a phased plan. You're talking about, it seems to me like they're entertaining the idea of putting a sewer little into somewhere in the future. I think the neighborhood should have an opportunity to speak to that. They may not get the answer they want. That's how public business goes. But I certainly feel that that's an appropriate thing to do. It looks to me like the timeline on this project, it's not that great. I think actual construction is maybe something like 4 months. It seems to me if this got pushed out a little farther at this time of year, it wouldn't be a huge encumbrance to the applicant. And I think it would maybe do some goodwill in the neighborhood. And I just think people should have a chance to speak to this. We're kind of in an odd situation. If this was like within all in the jurisdiction of Colorado Springs or Manitou or anything, we'd probably handle this a little bit different. Thank you.
Commissioner Stone.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mayor Graham, for your comments. I would say the one difference is, and maybe this is coming from the county side of government versus the municipal side of government, is that as we look at what's been brought before us today, and which has been previously brought before us, is we had 2 public meetings, one with water quality, one with CAC, and then it was forwarded on to us, at which point, so that was 2 public meetings, came to us in another public meeting where, even though we sent it back, we also allowed the opportunity for residents to speak at that meeting, sent it back to those boards for them to review again, another opportunity for people to come and talk to. And I realize the only thing that's missing out of that possibly is getting a postcard in the mail saying that there's going to be this meeting. But I think perhaps with the attention this has been getting, at least within the neighborhood, I know if this was in Teller County, believe me, if this was Florissant, everybody would be talking about it. And with social media these days and the ways that people communicate, is that I would hazard a guess everybody's aware of what's going on. And I'm not sure what would be. We've gotten certainly a lot of good information. We've gotten some good testimony from people in the areas. It seems like there's kind of 2 major areas that I see that people are concerned about. And of course, number one is safety. And we're all concerned about that. Life, health, safety is paramount to everything that we do. And the whole point of, putting in holding tanks is because they're proven they're safe. But then from there, it's then the transport, whether or not the transport is. I think the real question on this, actually, in my opinion, from a legal standpoint, is a truck transport the appropriate way to handle the sewage once it's done. Is this holding tank, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, that the question in front of us is whether or not legally and appropriately is the expansion of the holding tanks a proper and appropriate way to handle waste off this site because of where it is. And obviously it's in front of us today because it is where it is. If it was inside the city limits of Colorado Springs, we wouldn't be having this discussion. If it was, within the city of Manitou Springs, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So the processes are a little different, but I would disagree that there hasn't been a public process. I kind of feel like that this board has given ample opportunity, including sending it back, to ensure that people got the opportunity to have their voices heard. And then also, of course, since that time, we've gotten additional communication, which I think kind of cements that viewpoint that people are finding out about it, and we are getting those comments. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stone. Mayor Dixon.
Okay, so many of you know I'm an ex-federal manager. And my understanding of any governmental entity is when requirements are met, then we're obligated to issue a design approval or some kind of an approval. And so, the question I'm going to be asking is, have the PPACG requirements been met? Now, having said that, there's nothing stopping us from making additional suggestions. And it sounds like maybe one of the suggestions would be to at least send a summary of the emergency response and what would happen if there is a spill. and maybe even numbers to call, to each of the affected residents. And then maybe another suggestion would be to explore this alternate way. I don't know if it's something where you can go up one way and down another. But to me, those would then be suggestions that went along with an approval if they've met all the PPACG requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments in the room, or I'm still not seeing any hands online?
Can I make a
And
comment?
did you have?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Stone said it very well in terms of the processes we've gone through. We've been to water quality, both of those members twice with unanimous approvals both times. The first CAC was 7-5 turning it down. The second was 7-5 approving it. And they did have that extra month to respond and to get information out. And and I feel like we have met all of the requirements. The vault system, although not ideal in terms of long-term, is the safest way in there. It ensures that we're not going to have any discharge into the creek, which I know is one of the big concerns, is the water quality in Cheyenne Creek of the neighbors. And so this system, again, is zero discharge, which makes it go through the state a little bit easier than if you do have discharge. Then you have to do water quality testing at the point of discharge and down road and continually throughout the process of operating the system. With zero discharge, that's not required. And I think it's everybody's idea that a tie-in would be the most desirable, and down the road that will happen. But I think Commissioner Stone said it very well in terms of the public notification. And this is, at this point, the best option that we have there.
Anybody have any more questions? Yes.
It wouldn't be a question, it would be a comment, so.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Good.
Yeah.
To follow on to what Mayor Graham in a way suggested, and to tie in Mayor Dixon's thought, I agree, if conditions are met, okay, then we should approve at a certain point. However, we don't necessarily have to do that today. We could postpone this or table it for 1 month. PPACG could coordinate a meeting, a neighborhood meeting, since it's really in an odd jurisdiction. I mean, PPACG seems to have oversight over this, and give the Broadmoor an opportunity to come to that meeting. Certainly can't compel them to, but it would give them an opportunity perhaps to answer more questions that the residents have, the citizens have, about the future plans for tying this into city wastewater. And I would be willing to make a motion to do that, to postpone the vote on this for 1 month, to give PPACG the opportunity to coordinate a meeting in approximately 2 weeks in regards to this. Give the Broadmoor an opportunity to be present at that. And then a month from now, we make a decision on this. So if that's an acceptable motion, I've made it.
I'd second that, Mayor Dixon, assuming PPACG can make arrangements.
I third that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and since it wasn't, I think we're gonna need to have some deliberation on that. So could you go ahead and repeat the motion, because you kind of wandered
Yeah.
around that for a second.
The motion would be to postpone this until our next meeting.
And that's it.
That could be
Okay.
it for the
Well, that's what was
motion.
second. That's what was seconded. Okay.
But
All right.
during that time for PPACG to attempt to coordinate a meeting, give the Broadmoor an opportunity to be present.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I actually had a question also, and it's just purely around the ability and capability to create some type of piece, whatever that piece would be, to send out to residents, what area, what are the boundaries, who gets it? Is it by mail? Is it by posting on the door as per our legal requirements on open meetings laws? What is the proper notification? Because again, I feel like there's been a lot of notification. And personally, I mean, I don't support the motion because of those questions. Is how do we accomplish that in a month? How do we figure out first off, is what is the impacted area? And then how do we contact people in that area with enough time in advance of whatever public forum that this would be, that's different from the public forum that's already occurred twice within CAC and within water quality, and now with this board, that would be any different than the information that we already have. So, well, I appreciate certainly the sentiment of where it's coming from. I think there's some logistical things within 30 days that I don't see where, I guess, and that's not my job also. There might be somebody out there that says, yep, I know exactly how to do that. We can get her done. And if they can, that might change the discussion for me. But I personally don't see what would be gained from waiting 30 days and what, and whether or not that would even be possible to have a meaningful meeting of people within that period of time. Because as we know in the government world that we work in, 30 days is not very much time to accomplish any meeting when at this point nobody has been notified about it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a question for the engineer.
Mhm.
When was the anticipated beginning of this project? Were they trying to have this system in this year? And if this is postponed another month, is that going to affect your timeline and potentially put us into some legal ramifications of that?
Yes, initially it was planned to be installed this year. The installer's on board. He's one of the approved ones in El Paso County to install these vaults. I don't know the specific answer to that, but yes, it could potentially make it where they could not install it this year. And just if I can make a general comment, it feels like I understand the people's concerns and I do want to meet with them about the traffic patterns, but the concerns are primarily traffic related that I hear, and safety. And we want a safe canyon there, but these same concerns are the same ones we had at the previous a month ago meeting, and we had one 2 weeks ago or a week ago, I guess 2 weeks ago with CAC, and it not that they aren't concerns and legitimate concerns, but they are the same ones, and I'm not sure what extending another month is going to change in that matter. The initial meeting, maybe not all the residents knew about it, but I believe they do now, and we've had another month delay in starting this project.
Right. And I agree with Commissioner Stone. I don't think I can support the motion either because I agree with all the reasons you stated. I don't think we can get it done within 30 days. And I just think what we have in front of us, while we understand the concerns of the traffic and the safety and everything that people have presented here, I don't think that is necessarily part of what we're being asked to act on today. And I think there's another way to have meetings with potentially the county commissioner for that area, the council member of that area, and see if they can get the Broadmoor to the table to take care of those traffic concerns in a different manner. So
This is Commissioner Williams.
Oh, a hand. Thank you.
I am against the motion. I believe that when the city came through and approved the park, that they had a traffic study. They discussed the traffic issues. I think postponing it another 30 days is actually an unfair burden to the applicant. So I will be voting no on the motion.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair? Yes, thank you. Thank you. So I think I would be opposed to the motion as well. I'm not, part of the challenge is what's actually already been stated. There may in fact be statutory requirements. If you're going to go through a public notification process, it really takes more than 30 days. And that really ends up in a more extensive delay. But here are some of the things that I think we can have as a consideration. One of them is to have a meeting with the neighbors for the purposes of trying to mix and match the routes a little bit. Just trying to, even if it is just one truck a week, it's still a lot of traffic all the time. And I think the way the residents view this is it's just simply a matter of fairness, right? And then to have a more detailed understanding about what would happen in an emergency. So I know we've got a robust Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management. I know that the truck has been through an extensive certification process. There's got to be safety stuff in that. So there may be another interesting, appropriate motion to make, and that would be a motion to approve, but then we can place some conditions. And the conditions could be something about asking the applicant to consider the idea of mixing and matching the routes and working with the vendor on that, and work with the neighbors and work with the Broadmoor on that. And then the other one would be to kind of gather up the response process, and then on those two items, come back and report to this board. And then we can continue that dialogue. But those are the two things that, in my humble opinion, seem to be the two crux items here. And maybe we could ask for, we could make a motion to approve, but then ask the applicant to address those two items in a future PPACG meeting. So I'll just ask the board their sentiments about that idea.
It's not uncommon when things come through that are controversial, put some provisions, on a motion. So, Councilmember Donaldson?
Yeah. And I'm very familiar with that. We did that yesterday with a gas station that we approved, but a light has to be in place before they get a certificate of occupancy. I don't think what Commissioner Vanderwerf is proposing is a bad idea, but I don't think it has much in the way of teeth. It's just a recommendation, please come back and talk with us. The reason that I'm making this motion is that the applicant hasn't met, all right, with the neighbors at all. And I think that's kind of the crux of it. If that had happened, I don't think I would make that the motion, which I have. But I think this is our opportunity to have some influence to encourage that to happen, just simply by our scheduling authority. Thanks.
Mayor Graham?
Thank you. And I would certainly echo Councilman Donaldson's comments just now. I guess one of my questions is, so there were a couple of public meetings that people could have responded to. Could someone help me with that? When were those meetings?
Well, they're referring to the previous PPACG board meetings.
Right. Okay. So they were during the daytime.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I was working, I would not have been able to attend any daytime meetings, or except with great difficulty. I mean, in my mind, if you do a public meeting, you need to do it at a time when the public can reasonably get there. So I would think of, in the spirit of fairness, an evening meeting would probably be a better time to do it. So, and I asked the board, I think, okay, technically, we can say we've had those meetings, but really is that, the real spirit of fairness? Does that give people an opportunity? When Mr. Bensberg had proposed was to have the public meeting somewhere near the neighborhood, at one of the schools, the Cheyenne Mountain District, and to my mind, that is really more the spirit of giving people an opportunity to talk, to listen, to make comments. So I would still hold out for a meeting at a time that's convenient to the neighborhood and at a place that's convenient as well. So, I can appreciate the fact that we don't want to protract this, but at the same time, I think there's a balance that we need to have, and we're in this odd jurisdictional limbo. So I would continue to support the motion as stated by Councilman Donaldson.
So we do, just to make it clear, we do have an email from someone who said that this time did not work for them today. So they did send an email in. So that has always been on.
No, I did not, but I'm basing that on my experience in Manitou Springs, where I've had more than emails on multiple times saying that people couldn't make the meeting, or it was inconvenient, and we reopened some of those kinds of public comment situations, which I'm not keen on doing that, but I look for a balance point. I sometimes wish I had Goldilocks to tell me when the pot is just right or the bed is just right. Dealing with the public is sometimes,
I get it.
Find this balance point. Thank you.
Councilmember.
That's me.
I am determined. I am so
I'm the only
sorry.
council
I'm just
member.
going to call you Stan. Is that
Trying to
work?
give you a promotion, Stan.
I'm not sure who was first here.
No.
There you go.
Is it okay if I go first, Dan?
Well, I'm not drinking.
Um,
I think.
Neither one's a Celtic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And I guess then if I were back in commissioner's chambers, I would probably at this point be asking a county attorney question, but not seeing an attorney in the room. It's you, Andy. So the question that's before us, is, the approval of the site, the approval of, the plan for the installation of the holding tanks for this system. In reference to Mayor Dixon's comments is that anytime this type of stuff comes before me, I'm looking for, is there, have all the conditions been met? Have the steps been carried out properly? And then if you hit the end and all the answers to those are yes, standards have been met, plans meet approval, it's been through CDPHE, been through water quality, it's been through CAC, it's been back to water quality, back to CAC, back to us, is what is the legal reason or the design reason? What's the flaw that would result in a board either sending this back saying, no, we decline because we don't approve of the design, we don't approve of the scope or the appropriateness of it from a legal standpoint. I think you also certainly are opening yourself up to potentially legal challenge. Hey, we did everything that you asked us to do, went through the entire process and got approvals all the way through, only to be turned down because of traffic in an area from a third party vendor that we have limited control over. Is that the information we're going to get in a delay and in a public meeting? Now, putting conditions on an approval where you say, conditional that this is approved as long as the Broadmoor or their assigns hold a public meeting in the neighborhood just to make sure everyone is aware of the plan and take input onto how the transportation plan might work. Fine. I'm not sure that's necessarily how legally binding that be. As Councilmember Donaldson said, there's not teeth in it, but again, we're not here to consider a transportation plan. We do that sometimes for different plans, but in this particular case, I don't see where that is relevant to the question before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As far as the scheduling of the meeting, it seems we could just post it on our website, right, which is how we do our meetings. And I suspect that the citizens who have been here are going to be quite helpful in getting the word out. One thing we found out today, and we are not declining the application. That's not what we're doing. What I did hear from the state's water quality representative that's on the call is that they're counting on this to be the public input part of the process. They don't have that. And so whatever public input we're going to have is going to come as part of what PPACG does. And so that is an important factor to me that this is it. Because I thought maybe we could recommend to citizens, you're going to have an opportunity to have more public input at the state level, but that's not true. This is it. So again, I think it is a matter of balance. And if there had been a public process involving the applicant with the residents, it would be different for me, but there really hasn't been that. So this is a final opportunity for PPACG to facilitate that before we make a decision and send it on to the state. Thanks.
Okay, barring any further discussion, I'm going to call for the question. And I think unless there's anybody else that really has anything else.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes.
With respect to the public input, Citizens Accountability Advisory Committee is that, and we've had two of those a month apart. And so again, I feel like we've met all the requirements and we have allowed the comments to come back. And so from that standpoint, yes, we can have another meeting, but I think it's going to be the same stuff we've heard 2 months in a row.
Okay. Yes.
I will, I'll echo some similar comments to Commissioner Stone. One of the challenges that any public agency has is specifically what are the requirements that are in question today? And does the applicant meet them or not? And if you go past that, that becomes kind of a component of possibly entering politics in the decision making, or possibly engaging yourself in liability as a result of the decision. But one thing that I have always felt strongly about is I'm really, really interested in getting as much engagement of the parties themselves. And that is why even to the point that I will agree with Councilman Donaldson, my recommendation, which was, a set of conditions about coming back and reporting, and there's very little teeth in it. The purpose of that is to try to encourage that engagement. This gives the parties on these two sides an opportunity to understand that, we as a board do want those people that have two different views to talk to each other and see if an accommodation can be reached. But we come back down to the basic question before us at the moment. I do feel there's been a lot of public process. I would say whether or not we've done these mailed notices or not and that kind of thing, my gosh, we've had the public at 2 PPACG meetings. We've had several citizen board meetings, and whether that public process was perfect or not, there's been actually quite a lot of it. So I just feel like we've, for the most part, met that requirement. What I'm really interested in is letting these two parties, asking these two parties to get together and try to work out some of these challenges. And there's the two things. So before we take the vote, I'm just going to state on the record that I'll be opposed to the motion, and then I'll be willing to make another motion that'll be similar to my statement. Thank you.
Okay, last call from the board for any comment.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, I would ask that the motion be restated before we
Yes.
vote.
Yep, that's the plan. Thank you. All righty. All right, so let's go ahead and restate the motion, and then we will be going around the room and taking a roll call vote, since I believe we're not going to be real unanimous on this potentially. I don't know where I'm getting that feeling from, but kind of am. And then we will go to the board members that are online and get their votes. So Councilmember Donaldson, if you could please restate the motion to the best of your ability, or anybody else who potentially has written it down.
Yeah, the motion would be to postpone, to refer our vote until our next meeting, and for PPACG to facilitate a community meeting regarding say this matter, the Seven Falls. What's it called, Andy? What's this called?
Seven Falls site application. That'll cover us.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, do you recall that that's a motion you seconded? Okay, the motion's been stated and seconded. Does everyone agree with that was the motion? Okay, seeing someone, I'm going to start to my right here. Councilmember Avila.
No.
Commissioner Stone.
No.
Councilmember Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerth.
Nay.
Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Gardine.
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Laura Chronic, thank you.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Case.
No.
Okay, online.
I can go in and handle that. In the meantime, Trustee Walker, I know you can't use your microphone, so please place your, oh, it looks like you already have. So Trustee Walker, looks like it is an aye in favor to postpone. Sorry, just doing a couple different things here. Councilmember Crow Iverson.
Yes, I support the motion.
Commissioner Williams.
No.
Commissioner Elsner.
No.
Is that it online?
Yeah.
Jared, okay,
Okay, and the chair votes no.
okay. So
That's
that's
what I was missing. I was starting out
Seven.
14.
7 ayes, 7 noes. So the
Correct.
motion doesn't pass.
Motion does not pass in the case of a tie. Do we have another motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a new motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Broadmoor Lift Station site application with 2 conditions. The first condition is for the applicant to report back to this board regarding the plans in place, wherever they may come from, be it PPR OEM, be it the vendor that does the work, be it the Broadmoor, whoever. What is the plan in case there is an accident to deal with speedy recovery? I would like to see that. That's the first condition. And the second condition is actually very similar to Councilman Donaldson's with regard to asking the parties to meet. The purpose of that is to deal with something that is not related to the approval of this, but it is related to the transportation component based specifically on citizen input about mixing and matching the ingress and egress with regard to the 2 roads. To have that conversation with the parties and see if they can reach an accommodation, and then to report back on that as well to this board. And that is my motion.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any deliberation on the motion on the floor?
Just on a side note, I'd like for the commissioner to repeat his motion for us. I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate your rescinding that request.
That's one of the longest motions I've heard in a while.
Thank you. And not written out for us. You get it all out there. Very good. Councilmember Donaldson.
Yeah, a question for Commissioner Vanderwerf. Was there a time frame or a date for this report back to PPACG?
I appreciate the comment from Council Member Donaldson. I did not specify a time because I'd say in both of these cases, there may be, the applicant may need more than 30 days to work that out. But maybe, I think you said that the construction would start within 4 months. So if the board were looking for a date, maybe that report back could be before the construction starts.
I would shoot for the next meeting, but again, with the feasibility of it, it might be the following. I would definitely attempt to have it done and have the meeting in the next few weeks and then have it be back at the next month's meeting. Again, can't promise it at this point.
And can you just repeat what they're going to report on?
Yes, the first one would be a report on what is the plan, whether they be plans from external agencies or plans from the applicant itself regarding if there is a mishap or some kind of accident. And the second one is to report back on work to hold a meeting between the residents and the applicant regarding the mix and match of where the truck will drive, what roads the truck will drive on.
So addressing basically the 2 concerns that were expressed by the people who came to the meeting.
That's
safety
correct.
And traffic.
That's correct.
And when you say applicant, are you referring directly with the Broadmoor or with the engineers?
I guess it's a good question. Hadn't thought about that. I do know that when we have somebody come before us for land use policy, I just refer to the applicant. And sometimes the applicant has a representative that represents them, and sometimes the applicant comes themselves. But I have to imagine, let's say if it is the engineering company that comes back and reports, there's no way they can do this without talking to their client. So that has to be done. So I don't think I'm specifying that.
Thanks.
And I don't believe, if I may, Madam Chair, that we can place any condition on anybody other than the applicant. So that's who it would go to.
I just wanted to make an observation that it seems like maybe that conversation that you're referring to probably would be something that would be ongoing. And I would hope that they would have that ongoing communication between the applicant and the community that they're affecting. So I would hope that's just a comment I have, that conversation would be ongoing to be sure that everyone is as happy as they can be. Just my observation. Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. Also, you know, a lot of times, I know when we had the PFAS issue hit Fountain, it was very, very difficult. Took us about a year to get the conversation going with the right people. But once that conversation got going, it's become a great relationship with the Air Force and has really opened a lot of doors for years now that the conversation's been going. So I would hope the Broadmoor or whoever they would like to represent them reaches out to the community that they're really impacting. Your mic is still on. Did you have something else to say?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further deliberation before I call it once again for a voice vote? All right, I'm going to start to my right again. Councilmember Avila,
Aye.
Commissioner Stone,
Yes.
Councilmember Donaldson. Could you turn your mic on so it gets recorded?
Nay.
Thank you. Commissioner Vanderwerth,
Aye.
Mayor Graham,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardine,
Aye.
Mayor Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Laura Chronic,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem, you guys are making me work at this today. Mayor Pro Tem Case.
Yes.
Okay, online,
So we already have trustee Walker who has voted aye as well. Councilmember Crow Iverson,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Elsner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Motion passes 12-2.
Okay, 12-2 on the vote, motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for your public comments on this. And we're hoping that those conditions we put on it will really help this issue. I'm going to call for a short break. I'd like to have a couple of minutes to meet with with Andy really quick to see if we want to rearrange anything on the information items on our agenda. Real quick, because this has obviously been a super important issue that took a lot of our time today. So let's just take a break until 11:10 and a comfort break for everybody. And then we'll look at that. Stretch break. Rain's back. Oh. government meeting back to order. If we could get all the board members to take their seats, please. Okay, we're going to go out of order and take the CDOT monthly update next because they need to leave. So please go ahead and start with that.
All right. Good morning, Chair and board members. As we get settled back in, I'll give a brief update and then I'll ask John Hall to step up for a little bit more of a project update. So if you recall, CDOT is undertaking a review of the TPR boundaries, and just as an update to this planning organization, we're still in the middle of that. We just finished the first round of public outreach on August 3rd throughout the state. We are now continuing to analyze the data as well as continuing to outreach to the impacted MPO, or not impacted, but just the MPOs and TPRs, just to continue that dialogue. We plan to have another, I believe, public meeting later this fall, scheduled. Outside of that, the public meetings went well. Some great feedback from just the different organizations throughout the state. And we're continuing to move forward with just analyzing the data and reviewing the data at this point. Next is a little bit of an update with respect to some of our projects that have advertised and are currently underway to get additional funding. We advertised the Fillmore to Garden of the Gods project recently and opened bids about a week and a half ago, and significantly over the engineer's estimate as well as significantly over our budget. That being said, Mr. Hall has put together a plan along with the region to really fund this project moving forward. And I'll let him kind of discuss the details, but next week is Transportation Commission Week, where we will present this plan for their review and approval to be able to fund this project. This project was about a 20% over our engineer's estimate, as well as budget. And so that all being said, we know the importance of this project and how crucial it is for this community. And we are doing our best to put together the plan or process the plan to get it funded to move forward for construction this fall. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hall to provide any additional updates on projects and open it up to questions afterwards.
Good morning. So we have a slide up based on Chair Thompson's suggestion.
Thank you.
So the active projects are really within the PPACG boundary, MAMSIP, US 24 resurfacing divide to Chipeta Park, and the I-25 ramp metering. There's really not much. All of them are still ongoing. The bottom two there obviously will look to be conclude this year, this calendar year. The top one, MAMSIP, will certainly go into next year. All three of them are just ongoing. I take any questions. As Shane said on the Fillmore to Garden of the Gods project, I can give some more details on the plan. I gave John Lasatos a brief little kind of a copy of the memo we were presenting to TC. The bottom line is there are three major projects within the PPACG area on the 10-year capital list. We have Fillmore to Garden of the Gods, we have US 24 East, and we have I-25 Academy to Circle. And what we've done, half of the recommended funding is to shuffle the fiscal years, a little bit of that, and to take I-25, about $5 million from the I-25 South Academy to Circle, and allow that to supplement the I-25 Fillmore to Garden of the Gods. The rest of the funding is various sources. The biggest one is we, thanks to Andy Steckline and some others in Region 2 who are really good about being proactive within the permanent water quality program. Looks like we've got about $2.5 million of permanent water quality funds that we're going to be able to bring into this project for all of the storm kind of water quality resiliency work that's associated with the project, and a couple other funding sources as well. But I think it's a good plan. And like I said, unless there's any questions.
Okay, yeah, I asked CDOT if they could just prepare a slide so we can all really see it, because sometimes it's kind of hard when they're just saying it all really quickly. So I hope if you found that helpful, please let Andy or CDOT know that I already know, I took a picture of it and sent it to one of my staff, so.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And this is just looking forward in the near-term projects. The US 24 signal replacements, Woodland Park, this says Trout Creek, Aspen Garden, Paradise Circle, 3 different intersections. There was a lot of work, very important work done by CDOT in getting those lights timed in a way that has relieved significant traffic congestion through the Woodland Park area. It's increased safety as well as kept traffic on Highway 24 where it belongs versus people trying to bail off to get around those traffic concerns. So just my message to you is that don't ignore the great work that your department has done previously on the timing of those signals because it's amazing what a little tweak in signalage can cause in regards to not only traffic backups, but also impacts on residential neighborhoods as people bail off of, a major US highway into residential neighborhoods to try to avoid it. So just be very, very careful.
Absolutely. We don't want to go backwards on this.
I echo that. It worked very well and made significant difference in the summer months particularly.
And these are signal. It's 2 intersections, right? Because the Aspen Garden Paradise is one on one side, one on the other. Okay, so yeah, you're right. But these are signal replacements too. So there should be very low risk of anything creating a problem. We're not like inserting a new signal into the system or something like that. Yeah, it is refreshing when people complain about something else. So. And
yeah, I just want to make a comment. So through the city of Fountain on Highway 85, we have with the MAMSIP construction, the windmills coming from Pueblo are getting off at exit 128, going up 85. It is all permitted. We've seen the permits. It's all regulated, and they've dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's. But it is quite a discussion on Facebook quite regularly in social media, but just let people know that that's a state highway and they are allowed to drive there. And so they go up Highway 85 and then they take this, I guess a clover leaf or something up on the Mesa Ridge Parkway and out to wherever they're taking them. And so when people are hearing about that, it is being done according to regulations. And yeah, it's really tough when they're going through town 3 at a time and they're waiting for the signal and they're blocking the whole intersection and you get behind them or between them, because I've been there, done it all. But just be patient and they are following the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all looking forward to MAMSIP being completed.
Yeah.
And hopefully that'll alleviate some of those issues.
Yeah, but. All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. The resurfacing east on Falcon to east of Peyton, when you guys plan on start doing that?
If as long as funding all and bids and all come in,
So it's still
acceptably, it's next year. It's next
So
year
the-
construction.
2024, you think?
That's it. That's the plan.
Yeah, how about from Peyton to Callahan? Now, when we gonna do that?
That is on the 10-year list.
10, it's on the 10-year list?
That is, no, actually, I think that's a regular paving project. And I believe it's 2026 is what the plan is, what the fiscal year of that is right now.
Okay.
So, but I mean, the whole resurfacing program obviously is facing challenges on funding in terms of projects in the near term. So.
Okay, because I had people asking me about that, and so I'll tell them then 2024, and then maybe 2026.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There might be a few online.
What I have a status of the Baptist Road to Raza Roundabout? We just had a question in our council meeting Monday.
So our traffic intends to advertise that in October. Construction for next year. So as far as they're telling me everything, it is looking good budget wise now on that project, and they're on track to advertise in October again for construction to be next year, 2024.
And we do have 2 hands raised online. I'm not sure whose was first. Go ahead, Commissioner Williams. We'll just do ladies first.
Thank you for the update. I did want to say, on the House Bill 1101, the realignment of TPR boundaries, there was Andy sent out a very nice, the CDOT did a very nice slide presentation for Region 2. And if anyone wants to know more about how STAC is organized and the TPRs are organized and how the Region 2 funding gets distributed, that might be very worthwhile to send out to the board or any those members who are interested in that transportation. And for the STAC report, we had a long discussion about our PP funding, and we can certainly discuss that at the next meeting. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Elsner?
Thank you. Couple of questions for CDOT. We have this really neat chain up station, and I would really ask CDOT to come up with a date when they think they're going to be able to finish it. It's the one on the Kenosha side. It's missing lights, and I know they're tough to get, but you know, every time I did purchasing a long time ago, I would always have at least a decent idea of when those things are going to arrive, because I'd really like to have some updates. I've had a lot of questions from residents, like when are they ever going to finish that? The other comment I have is, of course, north of Alma, we now have it that first week of September. Don't even think about driving to Breckenridge, because you're going to have to go through Leadville. And on the Bailey project, I had someone yesterday tell me, it was Bill Bruner, say that he was told that they were going to be done maybe on the Bailey project by mid-August. And I just want to make sure you guys understand that that's, I don't know who told him that, but boy, you aren't anywhere near finishing that one by then. Thank you.
Yeah, the Bailey project is really just kicking off, and I know it's our traffic team that's running that project, but I know they're having some initial challenges right off the bat with the contractor and with some concrete suppliers and things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure who messaged that it would be done in August. In terms of the light poles and stuff like that, what we're hearing is still that can be completed this year and fully operational. But I've definitely heard some grumblings that even that, you know, that these supplies of the light standards and stuff like that are even further potentially delayed. So I'd have to correspond with you after the meeting more directly. I can get a little more better update on that. I know we're still hoping for that kind of October timeframe though.
Thank you.
And we have one more hand online. Mark P is all I can see. And
So, Madam Chair, that is not a member of the board.
Oh.
So that would most likely, I would recommend we do that as part of public comment
Thank you.
on this agenda item.
Okay. All right. Are there any more further questions or comments from any board members on this? Okay.
Thank you very much.
And did Mark have a question for CDOT?
He did. He put it in a chat, but I just promoted him into the method to be able to speak.
Okay, and Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Just a quick question for CDOT. I know it was brought up by several from Fountain last month's meeting, is when CDOT's going to address the bridge on Highway 16 just east of Bandley Road. It is becoming quite the ramp on that. It's kind of getting dangerous.
Are you referring to Mesa Ridge Parkway?
I believe that would be correct.
And you're concerning that your comment is about the fact that when you drive over it, you just go, like, for lack of a better description, ba-bump, ba-bump, ba-bump. Because,
yeah,
okay.
but quite severely.
Okay. Well, I could say it louder.
The approach on eastbound, I can tell you, is a concern. There is no capital or engineering, type funds designated for that project, and that approach is not even part of the structure technically. So bridge funds can't be used to repair it. I just did a site visit with our maintenance forces on that. So I believe the current plan is for them to get out there in the relatively near future. I mean, certainly before the end of the year, as I understand it with them, but they're right now, they're in the middle of chip sealing a bunch of other operations, and this would be a pretty significant operation to go ahead and probably rip out the concrete altogether and patch it in asphalt. I know we will be having some follow-on meetings to talk about some other funding potentials and having an engineering project to do a more substantial rehabilitation on that structure. But the idea of that being in the near term, in terms of the next year or so, is probably pretty unlikely based on funding. So I think that fix at maintenance is proposing is going to be the main one that would see, and that should address the main problem with that as you're approaching that structure.
Could we get one of whoever in CDOT would handle that? Could we get their email address to Mr. Parker so that maybe you can have a little bit more direct communication to answer his question if he has any more? Or
I can provide my email address.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've watched motorcycles go over that and they literally become airborne.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I can second that. You can actually loosen dentures on that. Okay. Okay. So,
Driven it plenty of times. I don't intend here to advise anybody to drive faster than they should.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Raleigh. Was that on a motorcycle that you lost the dentures, Raleigh? Or was it in a vehicle? Outstanding. Very good.
Okay. All righty. So Mr. Parker, someone from CDOT will get with you and get you an email address. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay. Well, Andy, it is 11:30 and
Yeah.
it is up to you.
We're pulling off, suggesting 6C freight mobility study and 6D our PPACG crash data dashboard, that we defer those until next month. We'll cover those in September, so we can cover each one in more than 30 seconds, but we can speed date our way through items 6A, B, and E. So Carol, do you want to come up and just briefly touch on the budget items?
Happy to. Thanks for your attention. We just want to make sure that y'all realize that we are being fiscally responsible with the funds that we receive. And so I created a couple different slides. Slide 1 talks about actual to budget dealing with revenue. And I broke it down by each program. And as you can see, we're at mid-year, so we want to be close to the 50%, which we are. We have an outlier in the AAA, and that's because AAA funding includes ARPA funds. But we just approved ARPA funds, and so that outlay has not occurred yet. So that $1.8 million will start being expensed, any day. It started in July. So you will see that. Military is an outlier, but it is due to a timing issue, so no concerns there. So that is slide 1. Briefly, slide 2, I figured you'd want to know specifically about admin and how we are administering the budget. And again, if you'll look at the percentages, we're close to the 50%, so I have no concerns in that area. The dues that we have to outlay based on the difference between the expenses and what we actually get to expense to each program is a little, it's like $8,000. So we're within budget there too. So again, we're being fiscally responsible with the admin budget. Happy to report. I will keep going if no questions there. I would like to kind of brag on our budget directors on some new grants that we have received. The military received $252,000 from the Colorado State Forest Service to prepare a community wildfire protection plan. So we will be expensing those funds when they come down the pipeline. Transportation was awarded $150,000 for a CDOT Safety Championship grant. We're in the process of advertising for that funded position that will be at PPACG. The beauty of that grant is it's no match. The transportation department also has some no match grants. There's 4 $100,000 grants and 1 $350,000 grants. Again, no match, so that we love those. Regarding grant renewals, military, the JLS 3 grant has been extended through the year. And AAA has gotten some smaller SHIP grants and Medicare fund grants renewed also. So pending, we've got all kinds of stuff going on in the military planning. I won't go through that. Transportation is working with Woodland Park for a grant for them that has no financial impact to PPACG. We're just helping out in that area. So I'll move on to, if you don't have any questions there, I'll move on to an update on the strategic plan and work plan progress. And so basically what this is, it's I had the budget director's update on important items that occurred during the months of April to June, so second quarter 2023. So I'll just talk about a couple of things. The Area Agency on Aging, they wanted you to remind you about the ARPA funds, which I just talked about, the $1.8 million in projects that include ramping up office equipment, vehicles, enlarging partnerships, building, remodeling to pickleball courts. I'll move to transportation. They're working on their long-range transportation plan, and I'm sure John will talk a lot about that in coming months. Other than that, I'll jump to the economic development. And we're just continuing to work on that plan. Quick overview there. Any questions?
All right, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on to one more item. Sorry.
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to get you out of here.
Yeah, I know. The 2024 budget, I'll just go over the key dates. September, we're going to be bringing in to you to talk about dues allocation, pay expectations, major budget changes, and the work plan discussion. In October, the draft budget. In November, we're hoping to get the budget adopted. We had great feedback on Friday, so I've got some plans for the wage expectations, and I've got plans on how we will handle the dues allocation. If you have any feedback that you want to give me in either of those areas, I'm sure you could reach out to Andy and he can get those to me.
Yeah, so if you are in the middle of your budget or beginning of your budget process and you're considering employee increased wages, if you could kind of share that information if you're comfortable with that with Andy, so we can kind of include that in ours. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, Carol. And I'll be reaching out to the city, town, county managers as well on that to find out what you all are anticipating for next year. So, yeah. Barb.
Good morning again. In your board packet is the timeline for the evaluation of the executive director. I'll be brief. The next time you will hear from PPACG HR department is from Sherry. Sherry Hoffman will be sending you some information in October. And then shortly after that, the evaluation will kick off and she'll have more information. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Brief absence of our chair. We can move to the next item on the agenda.
Stack report. Not sure if
Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner.
I am still here. So both last month and this month, we have started talking about the funding, the different requirements for, I guess, the funding for the 10-year plan. And last month, we talked about transportation alternatives, which are fairly well defined by how they are distributed, those funds. But this month, we talked about regional priority planning. I'm sorry, I didn't know if we were doing a stack report or not. And many years ago, that fund was at $200 million, which was significant money to distribute. Now we're down to 50 million. And that is on an annual basis. And there's some complex formulas, which we discussed. And we've made a recommendation to the Transportation Committee. I can pull out that recommendation unless I gave it to John. And then we were going through that, arguing about that because it's distributed by region. Our region includes Pueblo Area Council of Governments and everything all the way down to, it includes Park, Fremont, Custer, Huerfano, and then everything all the way down to the southeast corner of the state. We did include some population in there, so the Denver area gets slightly more. I think they get around 18 million, and I think ours was around 9 million. We did start arguing a little bit more when they showed us real numbers, but it's mostly a balance between what urbans get versus what rurals get. And Commissioner Elsner also would be able to explain that very well because he's also on staff and he just raised his hand. So I'll let him explain it too.
Yeah, basically what happened is the formula that we use now includes population, and it was the one that was most advantageous to Region 2 and Region 1, and DRCOG and all of that. So that was one that I kept voting for because it gave more money to our region. We lost that vote. We submitted a proposal that was the same one that we submitted 5 years ago, which was just lane miles, vehicle miles traveled, and truck miles, which was then advantageous to everybody else in the state. The interesting thing is what we submitted 5 years ago, after, again, another really, really long discussion like we had this time, was not accepted by the Transportation Commission. They went with the formula that we are currently under. And if I'm betting, I would bet that's kind of where it might head, because, you know, everybody really keeps wanting to push towards having population as a major portion of any distribution. So, you know, I'm hopeful that the TC goes back and does the same thing they did last time and uses the formula they picked last time, because it will help out Region 2.
And that pretty much covers it. So that was the majority of the meeting there. So it was held at DRCOG. We had a lot of interesting discussions and arguments, and that covers it. So we'll see what the Transportation Commission does when they consider that. And we'll follow that based upon our meetings that we have with Shane or John.
Yes, and I just want to add, pay attention to where you park in Denver. I parked in a building that I worked in 30 years ago, and it used to be a relatively cheap place, and I wasn't paying attention, and to get out, I had to pay 36 bucks.
Oh, painful. Jeez Louise. Okay, it's as bad as airport parking. Andy.
Okay, I'm going to defer my time to Jody. This came up at our legislative committee meeting earlier this week about support from PPACG on a letter to submit to the governor for enhanced funding for senior services in the AAA. Anything else we need to add? I think everybody's got a copy.
That's an excellent summary. So really this letter was put together. This letter is at your desk this morning when you came in, and it was put together by the legislative team of DRCOG, Denver Regional Council of Governments, and their AAA staff. It has already gone once to the governor's office, will be resubmitted at the end of August, and again to legislators as we go into the legislative session. The only other thing is that there was strong support by the legislative committee on Monday, and we would like to be able to add our PPACG and PPAAA logos to this letter as it continues through the process.
Well, we can't vote on it because it's not on here as action items. So
we've taken direction before on legislative items under my report, and I would suggest, I think we're in a safe space to be able to do that as well. Yep.
Everybody kind of just give him the general nod, thumbs up, whatever. Okay, I think you got it, Andy.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Jody.
Only other thing I'll add is initially we were going to meet in September in Park County, but as I mentioned, I think last month we're having to rework things a little bit. So we're aiming for October. Commissioner Elsner, we're still trying to nail down the space there, but looking at October for Park County. But our next meeting in September will be another home game right here in 5 weeks.
The reason we're doing that is because Homefront Military Network's having their fundraising breakfast. So hopefully you go get breakfast with them and then come on over to the meeting. So I understand they still have space for reservations. So Kate Hatton would be a person that can get you in there. All right. Anything else? Any announcements from anybody? Oh, you had to.
I did have to. Actually, it's just point of information for everybody on the board. Andy, along with I, hosted a stakeholder meeting with a very large group of people, and Sharon, you were on part of that as well, excuse me, for essentially to kick off the effort to possibly reform the already reformed construction defect laws in Colorado. And in definition, essentially what we're talking about are the laws that cover the liability of construction defects, specifically in regards into condominium style projects. They aren't being built in Colorado. We believe that that it's a very valuable part of our housing market, which does not exist in the state of Colorado. And it's important both for people who are entering into the home buying market and to that equity building market, as well as those people that are looking to downsize into perhaps a lower maintenance lifestyle. If you are wanting to do that in Colorado, you probably are going to have to move out of state to move into a place where you no longer have to mow lawns and paint your house, and that somebody else takes care of that for you in an over 55 type community. I thought it was a very positive meeting. We had members of home builders associations, both local and statewide. We had county commissioners and municipal electeds from primarily, I would say, Front Range at this point, but we're looking at obviously expanding this across the state. But just wanted to report back that we have kicked off those efforts. There is going to be a meeting hosted by CML, I believe, this coming Monday. That's another stakeholder meeting on, if not the same subject, a subject which grooves very close to this, which is zoning and affordable housing. And we're hearing from around the state that we're not the only group doing this. And so as part of this, we're trying to identify who those people are so we can all ensure we're rowing in the same direction and not all independently shooting at the target. I know for me, this is kind of my big legislative push coming in next session is to see what we can do in regards to into construction defects. It's important to Teller County. We have new casino construction going up in Teller County and nowhere to put those employees. I think that condos is part of the solution, but it's also part of the solution, frankly, for the employees that work for Teller County, that work for City of Woodland Park, City of Cripple Creek, et cetera, is we want them to live where they work. And currently, due to the state of the housing market, they cannot. Most of our employees live in El Paso County because there's more opportunities down here. Not saying you guys are building condos, but there's more options. But anyway, it's a big push. If you're interested in learning more about it, being a part of it, let me know, and we'll get you looped into next steps.
On that, Andy, I wanted to make sure I got an email yesterday. It says new Pikes Peak Housing Network organization launches. I don't know if you'd heard of that or not. It's through the Chamber and EDC for Colorado Springs.
Yes, that's the David Lord, BJ Scott group that was formed informally, I think, a couple of years ago, and they're now going to be housed under the Chamber EDC.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to kind of enter this conversation.
There could be some synergy. Yeah, could be some synergy between our effort and what they're doing.
Yeah, make sure it can include in the conversation, maybe. Okay. All right, can we like dismiss for real this time?
Almost. There's a big veterans event, motorcycle rally veterans event in Woodland Park coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend. The traveling Vietnam Wall will be there. There'll also be a proclamation from the City of Woodland Park on the Purple Heart Trail. If you wanted to speak just briefly on that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure. It's the Salute to American Veterans Rally. It has three components. The rally itself, which is Saturday, there's a ceremony after the the POWMIA ride up to Cripple Creek and back. And then the wall, of course, the traveling Vietnam War wall is, or veteran, anyway. The wall is at the middle school on the football field. And it is a absolute replica, just smaller. And it's open 24 hours and it's very emotional and worth a visit. It's the only time it will be in the state of Colorado this year. Anyway, it's propromotions.com is where you can see the information about the rally. It's really for everyone. It's not just for bikers, but people travel here. This week has been Sturgis, and so we always have it the week after Sturgis is over. So lots of folks that are in Sturgis will be coming back through and come to the rally. So it's really a great event, and it means a lot to the veterans and even active duty in our area.
What time is that Saturday?
12:30 is the ceremony at Memorial Park.
And what date?
It's the 18th and 19th or 19th and 20th. It's that Saturday. Bear with me. It is the 19th Saturday. And then on Friday, the 18th is the red shirt giveaway in recognition of those that have served at Memorial Park.
Okay, so not this Saturday, the next one.
The 19th, 18th and 19th.
Okay.
The 19th is the ceremony. Memorial Park.
When we had that wall through California one time, took my kids down there and a large Vietnamese contingency come by with flowers wanting to honor the people who had literally saved their lives so they could be in America.
It's something to see.
Yeah, Stan?
Yeah, I only have 27 things to bring up. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and then Stan can have the mic. Okay.
No. Just one quick, we have completed our deliberations on the redistricting for El Paso County. There are 3 maps that are going to be posted on the El Paso County website, and we would encourage citizens to provide input over which one would be their preferred map. So that's all I've got. Just want to.
When will those maps be posted?
We will be voting on a final approval of one of those 3 maps on the 15th of August. And part of the process is at this point, we cannot make any more changes to the map. So it's going to be one of the 3 that is posted.
Are they posted today?
Well, we finished the meeting 9 p.m. last night. So I don't know if it's posted right now, but it'll be, if it's not posted right now, it'll be very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the 15th you guys choose, but that's not necessarily the end, right? It has to be approved by a judge or something, or?
No. So not to belabor this, but the way the law was written, we were given a series of choices. We could have an independent redistricting commission or the county commissioners.
Right.
And then in either of those 2 choices, we could have an advisory committee or not. We chose the 5 commissioners and did not pursue an advisory committee. So we were the ones making the 5. So we're the final decision authority, and the vote will be the 15th of August.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But please take a look at the maps and provide input.
No,
Thank you.
During your normal meeting or?
No, that'll be a completely separate meeting. 15th, I believe, is a Wednesday. I might be wrong.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The meeting is on Tuesday at 1 p.m. This is Commissioner Williams, Tuesday, 1 p.m. Centennial Hall.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Next week, I testify on Regulation 28 for the over 50,000 square foot buildings. Even with the latest data dump, I still have issues with the baseline numbers they use for the economic impact analysis and the energy use intensities.
And he is the perfect person to testify. They tried to get me and I didn't understand it and he does. So he's the perfect person, right? All right. Can I for real now? All right, we're done.